Hello, I'd like to welcome all to today's Endowment for the Middle East Truth webinar. I am Joseph Epstein, Emet's Director of Legislative Affairs. Today's webinar features Hussein Hassani, an independent researcher focusing on Afghanistan, Iran, and the Middle East. Ever since Israel allegedly assassinated Hamas Chief Ismail Haniyeh, the world has been waiting for Iran to retaliate. Iranian officials have threatened, but so far have not taken action. The United States and foreign mediators, including Iranian allies like Russia, are maintaining pressure on Iran to avoid starting a regional war. Iran seems to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, it cannot let Israel's assassination of Haniyeh go unpunished without sacrificing its deterrence. On the other, a regional war is not in Iran's interest. Outlets like the Telegraph and Iran International have reported a dissent in opinion in the Iranian leadership on how to respond. Today, Hussein will focus on how Iran's elite is weighing potential responses. Hussein Hassani is an independent researcher based in Ottawa, Canada. He holds a master's degree from the University of Tehran in Middle East Studies. His concentration was on the independence of Kurdistan and regional security of the Middle East. Hussein previously worked in Iraq, researching terrorist groups, specifically ISIS and Al-Qaeda. While living in his native country of Afghanistan, Hussein focused on the Islamic State of the Khorasan province for the Afghan Institute for Strategic Studies, writing a book with Sean Withington called Islamic State Wilayat Khorasan, Phony Caliphate, or Bona Fide Province. After the U.S. Withdrew from Afghanistan, Hussein fled to Canada, where he now covers the war in Gaza. Hussein is fluent in Farsi, Arabic, Kurdish, and Pashto. Before we start, I'd like to mention that our work is only possible with the support of you all. If you find what we do informative and helpful, consider sponsoring a future webinar or contributing to Emet. It is your help and support that allows us to continue with our important work on Capitol Hill to ensure a prosperous and peaceful Israel in the Middle East, fight the influence of the Iranian regime, increase U.S. national security, and improve the welfare of Jewish Americans. Today's webinar will be recorded for future viewing, and I encourage you, those of you who find the webinar informative, to share the link once it has been sent out. If you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to write them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Hussein Hassani.
Thank you so much, Joseph. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for providing this opportunity for me to talk about the recent development of Iranian dilemma inside the Middle East and across the region. So I would like to share my screen so share my screen about just a second. I have some problem with this. To share my screen to show those slides to you about what is the perspective of Iranian intellectual on the potential strike of Israel. So my English is not very well because it is not my native language or first language. It's been my fourth language. So if I could not elaborate more or could not elaborate well, please forgive me for that. So basically, Iranian after the demise of Ismail Haniya inside Tehran, there has been a lots of argument between Iranian that they think that Iran should retaliate Israel or Iran should strike Israel again based on the right of Iran in the region. So I have been studying Iranian intellectual perspective toward the war inside Iran and the war inside Gaza after October 7. And so I will start with the with the first slide. That first slide is a new Iranian or new Farsi proverb that it suggests that if Israel knows the Ismail Haniyeh's bedroom, that means that is it ultimately they know about the time and the details of the IRGC potential strike on Israel. This is becoming more famous and popular between Iranian public opinion. But in this presentation that I'm giving to you, what is the Iranian perspective, intellectual perspective toward the strike in Gaza? Next slide. I think the next slide that I will introduce that who are the Iranian intellectuals that I have been studying them since the October 7, and particularly since the death of Ismail Haniya in north of Tehran in guest house of IRGC after the inauguration of Masoud Pezeshkian, the new president of Iran. So in this slide, in this presentation, I just targeted the Iranian intellectual, mostly inside Iran, that they do not have any affiliation with the opposition groups outside of Iran. These intellectuals that they have close ties with the Iranian intelligence entities or IRGC or Iranian officials. And also, I just collected those information from those groups that from various groups of Iranian because of the inclusivity and because of the issue of to have one comprehensive picture of the Iranian intellectuals. In this case, I just collected the information from the moderates, Iranian moderates, Iranian conservatives, Iranian hardliners, or Iranian progressive with regard to the what would be their opinion about the strike on Israel after the death of Haniyeh. So in next slide, so for the many of Iranian intellectuals, the death of Ismail Haniya in the sensitive place and sensitive timing, just a few hours after inauguration of Masoud Pezeshkian in Tehran, and even in the guest house of the IRGC, that become that for many of Iranian that it become a massive failure for all of the official entities inside Iran. And this failure should consider in 5 factors. The first one is that the that is a counter intelligence failure, that it leads to the internal conflict, which is so we know that about those conflict between IRGC and Ministry of Intelligence, Wizarat Italaat, about those conflict and traditional conflict that they have had this kind of struggles. For example, in case of Mehdi Fakhrizadeh, Ministry of Intelligence just called them out that we know that maybe Mehdi Fakhrizadeh will assassinate. Please let us do something. But at the meantime, IRGC and protection organization belong to the IRGC did not allow Ministry of Intelligence to do their investigation about those threats inside the IRGC. So this conflict just rose up again, and Ministry of Intelligence and IRGC, they become struggling with each other and arguing with each other about this massive failure. The second criticize that they are making at the moment, Iranian intellectual, they are making about the process of hiring and recruitment of people based on the individual's appearance. So we know that in Iran, if you have a beard, that means that you are a Hezbollahi, or you are an conservative or hardliner close to the conservative parties like Paidari, or like the other parties that they are close to the Ayatollah Khamenei. So most of the criticism at the moment is that Iranian intelligence entities should avoid any kind of assessment based on the individual's appearance, and this is one of the main weaknesses of Iranian intelligence entities, to assess people based on their background, based on their appearance. The third one is that people of Iran mostly admitted that that Israel has an upper hand in foreign intelligence, and if they can do assassinate Ismail Haniya, that they have to be apprehensive about the destiny of themselves, and this made up lots of fears among the Iranian officials. The next criticism which is very important is that most of the Iranian intelligence, they are raising the concern that what would be the outcome of the investing so much hard on the missile industry or militarization of IRGC, or presence of IRGC inside the Middle East, across the Middle East, particularly in Lebanon and in Syria and Iraq. What would be the outcome if Israel can operate easily inside Iran? Most of them, they are criticizing that Iran should enhance the intelligence and counterintelligence program to do something inside Iran to counter all of the threat, and some action inside Israel or other countries to do so. And the last one is that if Israel can assassinate Ismail Haniya inside Tehran, it means for them that the strike on April 13, or Operation True Promise, was not sufficient for Iranian to restore or to stabilize the deterrence of Iran post aftermath of the killing of Iranian IRGC's top commanders in Damascus. So basically, based on these failures, Iranian going to propose some kind of proposal or scenarios for the Iranian entities or Iranian officials. So I just collected them in three major categories. The first category is national level. The second category is regional level, and the last one is the global level. So in the next slide, most of the Iranian intellectuals, they are mostly saying that what would be the scenario for Iran, and what would be the main question? In this case, the question is not that Iran should retaliate or Iran should not retaliate. For many, the question here is that Iran should retaliate or Iran should go to the full-scale war. So in this case, I mean, this retaliation should have some features. The first one is that majority of them, they are suggesting that this retaliation should be well calculated and well designed, because Iranian intellectuals, they are warning the government or official entities that you should be aware of the backlash if your retaliation is not well calculated. The second feature is that the retaliation should has a capacity to ensure the restoration and the stabilization of the Iranian deterrence across the Middle East, particularly in terms of in front of Israel. The third one is the Iranian military analysis or security analysis. They are saying that based on the statement number 3 from the third statement of IRGC, they announced that the missile that killed Ismail Haniya was the short-range missile, and that was not come from the F-35 outside of the Iran or inside of the Iran. So based on that, Iran needs to retaliate equivalently security and military measures. Plus, Iran should do some special operation inside Israel, which is this special operation is target killing. It doesn't matter that this operation is what is the scale of this operation inside Israel, but or what is the target for them. But Iran should do some target killing inside Iran to retaliate the Ismail Haniya demise inside Tehran. And the last one for those people that they are follower or they are fan of retaliation is that Iran would continue the psychological warfare or psychological operation on social media to make it deter for the Israeli civilians, because for the Iranian perspective, the fear of the death is worse than the death itself. How Iranian can inject fear through social media, and how this can deter the Israeli civilians. But at the meantime, there is other Iranian intellectual that they know about the price of the full scale war for each actors, and they know about the vulnerability of each actors in terms of the geopolitical. Particularly, Israel has some vulnerability inside the region, and economical weakness, and the security weakness for Iran, and they are followers, or they are fan, or they are pro. They are not going to suggest the retaliation. And other so this group of people, mostly they think that the prevention of escalation is the best option for all of the Iranian entity, and instead of the retaliation in military and security measures, Iran should do something in the foreign policy aspect or in international law to bring or to hold Israel accountable for this assassination. In the next level, in the next slide, I would explain at the regional level and how Iranian they are thinking in the regional level after the miss of Ismail Haniya. So first of all, Iranian says that the miss of Ismail Haniya was kind of Benjamin Netanyahu trap, because Benjamin Netanyahu needs to escape from the deadlock. Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to destroy all of the effort for the ceasefire in Gaza war, and Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to slap strongly to Iranian intelligence services or intelligence entities that to express this, that Israel has an upper hand in everywhere of Iran, and it can do anything based on the intelligence capabilities. And afterward, Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to send a strong message to Iran that after the inauguration of Masoud Pezeshkian, which is always called by the moderator of Iran, he is a moderator, but he is not a moderator. He is an IRGC affiliated president, or that become president of Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to send or transfer a message to Iranian that we can do anything, and it doesn't matter that you are moderator or you are conservative or you are a hardliner close to the Ayatollah Khamenei. In this case, in the regional level, most of the Iranian intellectual, they believe that Iran should retaliate it with the assistance of its proxies, such as Houthis, such as Hezbollah, such as Iraqi militias, because their casualties is massive. Based on the casualties of Houthis or Hezbollah and Iraqi militias, they should involve with that retaliation with Iran. And at the meantime, for example, they suggest that they should support Houthis to target Haifa port, to make Haifa out of the order or out of the service, because Houthis, they know how to target or how to propose the threat on the Red Sea. And for example, Hezbollah, because Hezbollah suffered lots of Hezbollah just lost lots of its commanders, top level and middle level. Hezbollah should retaliate, and with the coordination of Iran. In this case, in this retaliation, I think most of the Iranian intellectuals, they are believing that the location of a strike should be outside of Iran and should be from the one of the axis of the resistance, one of the axis resistance port, or axis of resistance bases inside those countries. And from the global level, Iranian says that how they can embrace the U.S. and Israel relation to hold Benjamin Netanyahu accountable, or Israel accountable with this case, because they know that they know about that there has been a big gap or struggle between the Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. That they are so Iranian, they are willing to embrace this gap to make it deeper or make it bigger. At the meantime, Iranian, as long as I said before, that most of the Iranian, that they are not fan of retaliation. They think that the foreign policy of Iran across the region, across the global level, and international communities should be very strong and should be very active to hold Benjamin Netanyahu accountable. And at the and the last one is that how Iran could make one lobby group to halt Bibi within the U.S. pressure on the policymakers, particularly when United States is ready for one president for the presidential election from November to January. So the next slide would be my conclusion from various Iranian intellectuals inside Iran. That first, most of the Iranian intellectual, not just Iranian intellectual, most of the Iranian citizen or average persons, they think that that was a significant failure for Iranian entities, which is very that has a backlash, and that has a negative impact on the security spheres of Iran. And most of the most of the Iranian intellectual, they are thinking that this is a result of the investing so much on the missile industry, which has not had any kind of significant positive impact for Iranian, or spending money for the access of the resistance or access of the evil across the Middle East. I can see the confusion between Iranian perspectives with regard to those options for the strike. In the regional level, if Iran will go to a retaliation, 100%, I'm sure that Iran will use the proxies across the region in the Middle East, particularly Houthis or Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so at the global stage, I think Iranian will embrace the gap between the Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. So this is Joe. Thank you so much for listening. It's a great pleasure again to be here. So if you have any question, I'm very happy to address them. Thank you, Joseph.
Of course. Thank you, Hussein, again. That was really fascinating. So my first question is, the assassination of Ismail Haniya happened in northern Tehran. So for our viewers, northern Tehran is the affluent part of Tehran where a lot of senior Iranian officials actually live. And the assassination also was in a secured complex. So the fact that Israel was allegedly able to assassinate Haniyeh there means that in theory they could get to a lot of the regime's elite. So I wanted to ask you, Hussein, how has that affected discourse? Do you think now maybe some of the elite are more scared in taking steps, knowing that Israel has this sort of capability and could, in theory, even get to them in their homes?
Yes, exactly. So first point is that they believe that if Israel can target Ismail Haniya, that means they can target every person that they are willing uh, to uh, to make a decision for the retaliation. That means for them that if one of them wants to do something or wants to bring the idea of the retaliation, that means that the next target would be them inside the secure and the well secured place inside Tehran. And to be and I want to mention this as well, that the place that Ismail Haniya he was targeted. That was the one of the secure compound. That was not just a building. That's a compound that running by IRGC and running by the intelligence protection organization. So if Israel also allegedly can do that, that means that Israel can do further for every person or for every entities that they are deciding or brainstorming for any kind of retaliation.
Thank you. So when it comes to the Iranian elite, are they more or less, because as I mentioned in the introduction, there were some reports that there is dissent on how to respond, um, to the alleged Israeli assassination. But I wanted to ask you, are they overall do they agree with Iran's foreign policy, in particular, the funding of proxies, the aggressive policy in the Middle East, and so on?
So it is very hard to explain because the society of Iranian society is not a very monolithic society. So they are fragmented with regard to the what's that called? The ethnicity, the language, their ideology. To what extent they are close to the ideology of the Ayatollah Khomeini or Velayat Faqih, to what extent they are moderate, to what extent they are progressive. And we should be considered as well that most of the Iranian and the lower level of the hierarchy in the society, they are not very pro-Iranian regime, and might be most of them they are welcome. They welcome the death of Ismail Haniya, as long as we saw many footage that made people cheering out or they are celebrating or rejoicing at the death of Ismail Haniya, even though I saw lots of footages that people they are distributing sweets in Karaj, in one of in Karaj of there's one city by the name Karaj that people are distributing sweets because of this. So basically, it is very hard to explain that Iran has a one key message and has a one key response to this death, but most of the people inside Iran and the lower hierarchy of the society, they are very happy because they think that this is the result of. So if Iran can spend our money, the oil money or the oil money to the militias or the Hezbollah or Iraqi militias inside Iraq or Houthis. And at the meantime, Iranian people or Iranian society has not have any kind of money or revenue to spend that or consume that during this critical economic situation.
That makes sense. But when it comes to the elite, so, like the ruling class inside of Iran, right now, of course, they're allied with the regime because the regime is in power. What do you think they share the same ideological goals as the regime, however, or do you think they're just doing that because it's the only way to maintain their status?
Yes, absolutely. So for many Iranian elites or intellectuals, um, it doesn't matter that who is in the in the power, or who is controlling or who is managing. So at the moment, as long as I just mentioned that at the moment, Masoud Pezeshkian, he is now on the power, and all of the moderate class, they are helping out the government or the regime at the moment. But at the meantime, when it comes to Israel and the Israel operation inside Iran, I think it doesn't matter for them that they are belonging to moderate or conservatives or hardliner or even progressives. It is about the one foreign interference, or it is about the one foreign incursion or invasion inside their soil. So this might unite them. This might be a reason that all of them, they will get together, and they will think, or they will share the same ideology with the conservative and hardliners. So in this case, I don't think any kind of differences between them with regard to the ideology toward Israel, or the school of thought toward Israel, because most of these intellectuals, they believe that Israel is occupier, quote unquote, and Iran should help out those Palestinian or those Gazan or Hamas organization to fulfill the objective of the Palestinian cause.
Thank you. So I think this was something like 10 days ago. Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent out warnings to off-duty soldiers in countries surrounding Iran that Israel has relations with, most particularly Georgia and Azerbaijan, saying that the Iranians may want to strike at Israelis outside of Israel. What have you been hearing about that?
Yes, exactly. So particularly for the conservatives and hardliners, all of them, they think that, okay, when it comes to the retaliation to Israel, what if we could retaliate not Israel directly, but indirectly we can retaliate. For example, they are suggesting some locations like Erbil in Kurdistan in north of Iraq, and particularly Azerbaijan, because for many hardliners and conservatives, they believe that Azerbaijan is complicit with Israel. They have a great ties with Israel, and they are sharing lots of logistical and economical issues and security issues with together, and that's why they are thinking that Azerbaijan is not just a country; it is one of the assets of Israel that helps out those assets to come to Iran for operation, and then you're easily going to Azerbaijan because of some common background, some common language that they are sharing. Both of the borders, they are talking in Turkey or Azeri. So for many conservatives or hardliners, they believe that if Iran could not retaliate directly and then target Israel, the best target for them would be Azerbaijan and Kurdistan. So we can see that before of this incidents, Iran has been targeting Kurdistan, Erbil in north of Iraq, the KRG, Kurdish Regional Government, because they think that there are some presence of some intelligence or security cells belong to Israel.
What do you think? Do you think it's possible that, for example, people from these areas surrounding Iran, but who are ethnically part of minorities that exist within Iran, what do you think their role is potentially in terms of helping Israel with intelligence or with these, alleged assassinations?
So Iran is a country that always, Islamic Republic of Iran is a country that always accusing all of the minorities to become asset for not the minorities, those oppositions, that they are belonging to some intelligence entities like the Mossad or CIA, and always they are acknowledging this on the outlets. So basically, I think it is not very. I'm not surprised that if Iran called them as a intelligence asset for Mossad or for CIA across the region, and but at the meantime, we should consider the public opinion of both people, like Azerbaijani people or Kurdish people, toward Iran. I saw a video that most of the people of Azerbaijan that they were asked that if any kind of war happened between Israel and Iran, what is your stance in this case? And most of them they said that so Israel helped us the last, and we should support Israel, and we should stand with Israel because Israel helped us a lot. But at the meantime, Iran and or Iranian entities or Islamic Republic um, always interfered in our domestic issues and internal issues. And they know about the nature of Islamic Republic of Iran. As long as the minority people inside Iran, like Azeris, Turks in north and northwest of Iran, Kurdish in the west of Iran, they know, and the Baluchis, they know the nature of Iranian regime toward their rights.
Thank you, Hussein. So I'd like to now move on to some questions from the audience.
Yeah.
So one of them is, are the Iranian intellectuals right now speaking about a potential Israeli preemptive strike against Iran? And how are they saying, if they are talking about it, how are they saying they should respond in case of such a scenario?
So this is one of the major concern of Iranian. That's they would say that while Iranian entities they are considering some option for retaliation, what if Israel do something preemptive to hit Iranian or Iranian intelligence or Iranian officials again? This is one of the concern of Iranian at the moment. I can see and I can hear from them based on their brainstorming on the social media or in the think tanks or a panel discussion that those security breach is made very this that made possible that made Israel to do anything that they want, and this security breach has a one consequence or direct consequence on the Iranian security, that no one from the Iranian officials would be safe, and Israel anytime they can have some preemptive attack inside Iran to confess to actually to destroy any kind of idea of retaliation. So basically, based on the first proverb that is kind of funny. I mentioned that if Israel knows the bedroom of Ismaiel Haniya, that means they know the details of this tribe that would be happen by IRGC.
On that note, we have another question from the audience asking about how vulnerable the IRGC has become to terms of being penetrated, by various intelligence agencies, including especially the Mossad, and what that reflects.
So I think the series, the Tehran series, can explain this question more. That is based on the reality and based on the reality on the ground, that IRGC mostly penetrated, and there are very weaknesses with some financial treats or some sexual treats from the various groups that they want to penetrate to IRGC, and I think they well known about these weaknesses of IRGC, and this is the best and foremost one of the first and foremost weaknesses of IRGC to being penetrated by these intelligence entities across the region or globally. So I think I'm 100% sure that the series of Tehran can explain this more, that to what extent they are very weakness to those financial or those attractive sources or resources to being to be so much ready for any kind of penetration.
So recently, the Ayatollah Khamenei gave a speech in Farsi where he said that in Islam, tactical retreat is okay, but retreat for other reasons is not. Do you think this means that he is kind of justifying a potential non-strike from Iran or potentially delaying it even further?
Um, so basically, Ayatollah Khamenei, the team that has surrounded Ayatollah Khamenei, they are calculating every potential option for the retaliation or striking back Israel. But at the meantime, I think they are well aware and well known that any kind of strike would have a one backlash and great backlash for Iran because Israeli officials always emphasized on this that if Iran wants to do anything against Israel, Israel is very prepared, well prepared, and they are very they are preparing for any to respond back Israel if Iran wants to strike Israel. So I think that the majority of those advisor of Iranian supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei, most of them they are aware of this, and that's why they are trying to they are trying to convince Ayatollah Khamenei that to not strike and put it in this statement that put it in this way that this is another part of the strategic patient or sabre strategic. I think that that speech it means in this way, and I am putting in this way that Ayatollah Khamenei is going to announce that as a part of the strategic patient.
So when we think of delaying, it's hard not to think of the upcoming US elections that are happening in November, in that, we've seen this all across the world from places like Russia and Ukraine to places like Azerbaijan and Armenia to China, and of course to Iran and the rest of the Middle East. Global leaders seem to be really wanting to wait before determining their policy and base it on the incoming US president. So I wanted to ask you, do you think it's possible, first, that an Iranian strike would be delayed until after the elections? And second, what do you think the difference in policy will be? What kind of, what have you seen from Iranian sources on what sort of policy they should, choose in the case of a Trump administration and in the case of a Harris administration?
Um, so the global aspect or the presidential election in the United States is another dimension that that Iranian they are waiting to see what's going on and what would be happen in United States, and based on the election, they will go for a potential strike on Israel, or they will go to do something against Israel. So for many, they will say that. For many of the Iranian elites, most of them they believe that it doesn't matter that who will become who. If, for example, if Kamala Harris come to power, they have a good relation with Israel, which would be the obstacle for Iran to strike back or respond back to Israel. And in the case of Trump, even they know that so Trump is pro-Israel, and he knows that how to deal with Iran. And so basically, I think that they are not going to waiting for the result of the election. I think they are mostly advising the Iranian officials that Iran should make a breach, as long as I mentioned before that Iran should make make the breach bigger or make the gap bigger between Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu for the ceasefire issue, for the and for the halt or hold Benjamin Netanyahu accountable in United States or some other organization like the ICJ.
Thanks. So we've seen reports over really the past year, more actually, if I'm not mistaken, of Iran being incredibly close to acquiring nuclear weapons. Of course, they have managed very advanced enrichment of their nuclear stockpile. It seems like they keep adding also, more and more to it. Do you think that part of the response could be maybe breaking out nuclear breakout?
I can yes, exactly. So I that was my hypothesis or assumption as well, that maybe if Iran kept its silence and did not any kind of strike on Israel, I think the breaking out of the nuclear program is one of the options for Iranian to do that as a retaliation or as a strike on Israel to respond to the death of Ismail Haniya. So this is another option that I was thinking about. So I haven't seen any kind of argument, or I haven't seen any kind of discussion on this on the public spheres or open sources or think tank or panel discussions from the in Farsi language. So I think this is going to be another option for Iranian entities or officials to do so.
Interesting. Thank you, Hussein. So if you were right now in the place of the Islamic Republic, right? You don't want to start a regional war, but at the same time, you just can't let Israel get away with an assassination in the middle of your capital. What would you do?
Oh, I might not the best person for for answering this question about this, but I'm not sure that I can give one exact answer for this. Maybe I will put it in the one article about what would be the response and what would be the suggestion.
Of course. So we've also seen speculation that Iran could use some sort of non-kinetic, could have some sort of non-kinetic response, such as cyber attacks, such as maybe something of that sort. What do you think of that? Have you seen a lot of chatter on the potential of taking, such a step amongst Iranian intellectuals?
Yes, exactly. So uh, one of the issue that I'm thinking always that Iranian officials or Islamic Republic entities always they are trying to make up their failures in terms of the military actions and do that in the cyber security actions. For example, um, they are very. I'm not saying that they are very sophisticated with with this matter, but always I'm thinking that how to what extent that Iran can use this kind of um, uh, uh, cybersecurity attacks or cybersecurity activities against Iran, against Israel, or against United States or rivals or other rivals. One of the aspect of the cybersecurity attack is the idea of psychological warfare to put some psyops or psychological operation in the social media to as long as we have a lots of news we have a lot of news that Iran wants to interfere in the United States election, that wants to disrupt it or that wants to do something against that. So I'm 100% sure every time that Iran has some kind of failure against has some kind of failure in the military aspect or in the physical aspect. Iran wants to make it up in the psychological warfare or cybersecurity or the virtual spaces.
And so what would this actually look like? Especially, you mentioned psychological warfare, using tools like social media. Concretely speaking, what does that mean?
For example, I can see that how Iran can flame for example, the protest that it is going on based on the one international Iran international report by Negar Mushtahidi. Um, so Iran is behind of those announcement or of those protests in encampment or at university in Canada. So it is part of the psychological warfare of Iran to motivate, to stimulate those protesters to do so for the sake of Iran. So for me, I cannot see that this protest is going on is for the Palestinian cause or supported for the Palestinian cause. Mostly, these protests or these encampments, they are motivated by Iranian officials. So, for example, another example would be that in case of the United States, Iran has a actively willingness to interfere inside the election of United States or manipulation the thoughts, manipulation the ideas to discourage people or encourage people to do every kind of action during during the election. In case of, for example, Israel, Iran has been always injecting this idea that Israel has internal issues, has an internal conflict, and they will escalate it very soon. And this has a direct influence on the public opinion of the Middle East, public opinion of Middle East countries or Middle East groups. For instance, that those protests in Israel for bring the hostages back in front of some governmental official building or entities on the street. Iran translate those protests for the Middle Eastern people for the in Arabic language and for each people that in Farsi language that this protest indicates the first and foremost words of the Ayatollah Khomeini at the first day of the revolution, that he said that Israel will not see Israel should be eliminated from the region and Israel have to be. So I think that those mixture of those combined tactic of Iranian officials or cybersecurity attacks or cybersecurity activities they are going to target every aspect of those countries such as Israel and United States, and they want to mostly manipulating the idea of the people about the situation on the ground.
Thanks. So I wanted to ask you, of course, as I mentioned in the introduction, lived in Tehran and got your master's at Tehran University. In the West, we hear a lot about how, dissenting voices are, of course, shut down in Tehran. And of course, any opposition to the regime is not allowed. I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about the intellectual environment inside of Iran?
So we can observe this kind of the situation of the intellectual environment inside Tehran when we see that the most of the people or majority of people they have boycotted the election, the last election of presidential election inside Iran, because every one of them they would say that if we go to show the turnout and vote for the favor of for example, Pezeshkian or for example, Jalili, what would be the change, what would be the real change that we can see in the true life of themselves. So the most of them, they don't believe to this uh, to this kind of election process or political process inside Iran, because they believe that most of those political process are actually in favor of the supreme leader. But when it comes to the internal conflict, so we know about the internal conflict between moderated group and conservative groups. All of them, they are believing in this case that we should not do, or we should not allow any part of the conservatives to become a major power in the political spheres. And as long as conservatives always blaming moderation that they are very pro-Western, they are pro they are very kind of supporting the idea of the negotiation with Western countries and solve the problem with Western countries, because of the JCPOA is one of those actions that Iran during the Rouhani's presidential to, they make it through. So this kind of conflict we are seeing that from the internal or from the domestic aspect, that we can see the conflict, but among the intellectuals, for example, now Pezeshkian. So we could imagine that the cabinet of Pezeshkian would be full of the IRGC affiliated or semi-IRGC affiliated candidates. So now most of the conservative that they were up against Pezeshkian, they are now pro Pezeshkian, and they are supporting Pezeshkian because of the cabinet that mostly affiliated by accumulated by those IRGC affiliated candidates. At the meantime, the moderates at the moment, they are so much upset. Like Jawad Zarif, he is so much upset of that cabinet, and now I can see the conflict between the intellectuals with regard to the cabinet, or with regard to those ministers that they are going to Majlis or get the approval. I'm saying that so in a brief case, that Iranian intellectual with regard to the internal issues, they are very fragmented. They are always in infighting, and they have lots of struggle and conflict together. But when it comes to the foreign issues like Israel or like United States, the history shows this, that the society of Iran, not the intellectual just, and the society as well, they are very well connected to each other. They are going to be very united, and they believe that if someone invade Iran, it doesn't matter that we have a conflict. We have to stand together to defeat those enemies or those rivals.
Thank you so much, Hussein. It looks like our time is up. I'd like to again thank our speaker, Hussein Hassani, for being here with us and sharing your expertise. And we hope to see you in a future webinar as well. And I'd like to thank our viewers, of course, as well for staying with us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Bye.